Ladies and gentlemen, today, welcome to Conquer with Chris. My name is Chris Collier, your host. I have Captain McGhee with us today, and it's going to be a very interesting podcast. I look forward to this. I've been looking forward to this since I first heard about it, and let's get started. So, Captain McGhee, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, a little bit about your background.
Yes, I'm Bermun McGhee. I grew up in a small town called Talladega, Alabama, and unless you're a NASCAR fan, you probably don't know where that is. I started out in the military in a program called High School to Flight School program, where you basically you go to your basic training between your junior and senior year of high school. Then after you complete high school, you go on to an advanced course, which mine was avionics. I completed that after 6 months, then went into the warrant officer program, completed that, and then into flight school. And then I flew for the Army for 10 years, got out, started my own business, and in a nutshell, the rest is pretty much history, as people would say. And here we are today. That's the short version.
Short version. Oh, that's great. So I'm sure there's a lot of things you had to overcome. I want to hear about some of the things
Absolutely
that you had to overcome, that you had to face. You know, I have a friend who was in the 82nd Airborne. He said that he every time he got in a plane, got ready to jump out, fear would attack him. And he says, listen, since you're here with me, you can jump out with me. So, sometimes we just have to punch fear in the face and do it anyway, right? So let's go back and go through some of your maybe even early childhood or teenage years, some things you had to overcome so that you could get to where you are today.
As I said, I grew up in a small town, so then you have that small town mentality where you grow up around people, everybody knows everybody, and a lot of people just, they just stay there and, never venture out and go anywhere. I remember I was around 9 years old when I decided I wanted to fly. We were out in our front yard playing football, and a helicopter flew over, and I just wondered, how could you do that? So from that age, I kind of had an early interest in aviation and kind of started reading books about it and finding out how I could do it. And some of the greatest challenges I had was when I was in high school, trying to really figure out how do you get in the military to fly aircraft. And the local recruiters, they just want this, the easy, the easy recruits that, have no idea, no kind of career path that they want to do. And, they just easy to sign up and just send them off somewhere. But when I came in and started asking about, specific things to fly helicopters and do this, the officer program, they really didn't want to give the effort to, to do that because they don't get credit for it. So luckily, in my high school ROTC program, I had an instructor who was a Vietnam era helicopter pilot. And, he kind of took me on his wing and mentored me and kind of said, hey, if I could go back and do this all over again, I would have went this route. And he kind of told me that and told me about this program that the High School to Flight School program that they had during Vietnam, because they had such a high rate of helicopter pilots getting killed and just soldiers in general getting killed. So they had a high attrition. So they came up with this program that they would take young men right out of high school, send them straight to flight school, and then send them straight to Vietnam. So when I started looking into it, the program was still active. It was still an active Army program. It never went away. So I did a lot of self, self information, if you will, because there was no internet during that time.
There was no Google.
Yeah, there was no Google, none of that stuff. So I had to literally go to the military base that was the Army base for helicopter training, which was Fort Rucker. And here I am, a 16-year-old kid, driving down to South Alabama, trying to figure out how to get into flight school. And then that was kind of when I had my first brush with the adversity of, being a minority, trying to fly, and run into those type of issues where people were giving me the runaround and things like that. And but I never gave up. I continued to pursue it, got the information, studied it up, and I did my own packet myself to get into that program. So with no help from recruiters, nobody.
Wow.
So
let me get this right. No one gave you any. You had to go find the information without the internet. You had to go fill out all the paperwork yourself. You didn't have any. I'm sure maybe your ROTC commander helped a little bit here and there, but you had to do most of the work yourself. And then you had to find out how to get into that program yourself, and then you had to apply for that yourself. Man, that is a lot you had to overcome. And then the fact that you probably weren't necessarily immediately welcomed there is something else that you had to overcome. So this is, I'm going to segue here for a second and talk to the audience. Listen, you have no excuse not to make it to what you want to do. This gentleman here persevered. Too often, I think, in our time today, we think we just push a button and get results. But he had to persevere. He had to go get his own. But even before he could even begin to start training, this is amazing. I'm loving this. So you overcame those initial things. So let's talk about while you're in the military. I'm sure you went through basic.
Basic is basic for everybody. I mean, there's no. I mean, looking back at it now, I mean, it was, just basically making you learn how to take orders and listen to people of authority. That's it. I mean, I enjoyed it actually. As a teenager, we don't care about anybody, yelling at us or, tell us to get up and run, move fast, do this, do that. It's just, for me, it was just another day in adulthood, growing up, basically. But that's for the younger recruits. But when you have older recruits that come in the military later, that's a little bit older, they tend to have an issue with that, and it's harder for them. But basic training was easy. Then the warrant officer program, well, actually before that, what's called AIT, Advanced Individual Training. My specialty was avionics radar repairer, which I did at Fort Gordon. That was also, it's basically like going to college. You go to class every day, learning your different systems, your troubleshooting, all that stuff. And then warrant officer candidate school, right after that, it's basically basic training all over again. You're learning how to be an officer. They make you roll up your socks to be perfect 6 inches. If it's not 6 inches, then, they'll just destroy your whole room, and then you got to start everything all over. I mean, just things like that. So it was basically, for me, basic training all over again. But again, you have some of those soldiers that have been in in the Army for 10 years, and then they go there to be a warrant officer because warrant officer, just for your audience to know, is the officer that is a specialist in their field. So whatever field you're in, and you go to be a warrant officer, you're a specialist in that field. And I was there for flight, so I was going to be a flight warrant, which means my specialization would be flying. But again, it's 6 weeks long. It's quick and painless if you can just get over the mental part of it, of they're just screwing with you, trying to see who's going to quit and weed out those type of people that just can't produce under pressure. And after that, you immediately start flight school, and for me, that's where I start to see those challenges again, because I tell people aviation is one of the last closed communities, if you will, when it comes to diversity, and particularly in the military. I mean, it's really a closed community. And just to give you an example, while I was in flight school, out of 600 candidates in my class cycle, there were only 2 of us minorities in that class for flight students of 600. So that is what we face for the next year and a half of training.
Mm.
So you can imagine, and it's in South Alabama, and so that in itself can be an issue as well. But to my advantage, I will say, because I was so young, I didn't have a lot of distractor as some of my other classmates had, because they could go out and party and drink and all this kind of stuff, but I couldn't because I was too young. So I was forced to basically just sit in my room and study and focus on the task at hand. So that benefited me.
So you got through flight school, you graduated, you served our country. Thank you for your service. And then you got out, and you said you started your own business And what are you doing now? What are you looking at to accomplish now?
Well, there were challenges with starting a business, particularly again in aviation. I basically just had the goal that I just want to keep flying helicopters. So I just want to work flying a helicopter, and the only difference is I'm not doing it for the military, and I'm at home every day. So that was my initial thought and initial plan, and I started dealing with clients that I thought could afford the service, and it kind of channeled me down a new avenue that hadn't been basically explored by anybody, which was dealing with hotels and casinos on an exclusive basis with flat rate billing. And it just took a life of its own when I did that, because most charter operators would not do that for a customer. They will not offer flat rate bill. Even until now, you can't get flat rate billing from a charter company, because they're just not designed to make money that way. So once I did that, word of mouth in that network kind of spread, and so I ended up going overseas. In the overseas market, it was wide open. Not really many barriers with dealing with discrimination or anything like that. They just don't have those type of issues, and so it opened up avenues. So I just grew much more faster in the Asian market than I was here in the U.S. So I spent the next 12 years primarily focusing on the Asian market, and grew the business really big. And then at the same time, I always wanted to get back to my core love, which was helicopters. And I always had a vision that helicopters would be kind of like how you see I'm kind of date myself here, but if you know the George Jetsons, they flew around everywhere. So I always felt like that's how you really should get around, was using helicopters to, buzz around and not deal with traffic. So starting around 2007, I started this concept of click and fly, is what I originally called it. It was supposed to be where you would be at your computer and you wanted to go somewhere, but because you saw the traffic that you was going to, and back then all we had was MapQuest. There was no Google Maps and all this stuff. So you would see on MapQuest how long it was going to take you to drive somewhere, because that's what we used to do. You would type it in on MapQuest, see how long it was going to take, print out your route, and that's how we did it back then. So I had the concept of click and fly. You would be on your computer, type in where you wanted to go, pay online, and you would click, and then you would go to our nearest place that a helicopter could land, pick you up, and take you where you wanted to go. That was 2007. So fast forward to 2020, where everybody's on their mobile device and everybody likes apps. So I worked on developing a helicopter rideshare app to make it economical for everyone, the everyday person, even the local student working at the local McDonald's could take a helicopter ride and experience it for $20. That's where we are today.
Wow. Well, I'm sure you had challenges with that too. You had to overcome some challenges there.
Oh yeah.
So is about how far apart are your landing spots? Like, Metro Atlanta has a lot of crowded places, and I'm sure you have places you can quickly land and get up and out of there, and the other places you're like, don't know.
Well, just to give you an idea, the name of the app is Helicopter 2, and for short, it's going to be called H2, which means helicopter to somewhere. Like you're going to take a helicopter to downtown. So, for example, our route structure is a north-south route in Atlanta. So you would go from, say, the airport to downtown, and then from downtown to Buckhead to Alpharetta. So that would be the route structure, and they're about 7 minutes apart from each other in the aircraft. So when you're flying, it's 7 minutes, as opposed to probably usually around 45 minutes to an hour between each one of those stops. So
yeah.
So
wow, that's amazing. Well, and so when is this something that you already have on the open market? Is something you're launching?
We will be launching it to the open market this weekend on Saturday, September 5th. You'll be able to download the app from your Google Play Store or your iPhone iStore or iTunes. So it will be readily available. You can download it. Now, the service itself will not start until January 21. So mark your calendars.
Hey, look, you're in good company, because Waffle House opened up in Atlanta on Labor Day weekend. And you're opening up on Labor Day weekend. That's something.
Yes.
Well, do you have any social media handles or website you'd like people to follow you on?
For the Helicopter 2 app and everything related to that, it's very simple. I fly H2 TO, which is just like it is, iflyh2.com. And then for the more, broad stuff about my other companies and what we've done over the years, that's iflyredtail.com.
Okay, you got it here, everyone. Captain McGhee, thank you for being my guest today. I appreciate it. I hope you much success. I look forward to being able to ride in a helicopter. I've never done that, and I'm going to surprise my wife with a trip. So,
and actually, we're actually going to, I just want to let everyone know, we're actually going to launch at the Braves Stadium. That's where we're going to do our first fly in and launch this weekend. That's where our launch event is. I'm actually going to fly the helicopter in, land there at Braves Stadium, and do our launch event there. Wow. So I know this is probably going to come out after that. So I just wanted to let everyone know that's how big this is that even the Braves want to be a part of this.
Wow. Wow. Well, you got his contact information. You got the app, Helicopter 2, right?
Yes.
And so everybody listen, keep in contact with him, use his service. He seems like a really genuine person, and he's here in Atlanta, he's launching. So instead of using Uber one time, use his service. I greatly appreciate him being my guest. He served our country, and let's use his service. All right. So thank you so much for being my guest, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Chris Collier signing off. Remember, you can follow me on www.conquerwithchris.com. You can follow me on Facebook and on my Twitter and other social media handles below. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You should